A 10-year-old boy did what an entire army of specter hunters couldn't. He hunted down one of the deadliest specters alive, cut off its head, and displayed it in front of his own house. From that day on, the entire village stopped calling him a hero and started calling him the real monster. But when the strongest specter hunter finally came to execute the boy, he discovered a terrifying truth. The creature everyone feared wasn't the child, it was the village itself. Our story begins with a mysterious voice asking if you have heard the tale going around. It is the legend of the slug-headed specter, a terrible creature that brought ruin to an entire family. The narrator warns that, although it seems like just another spooky tale, this story has something different about it. The image focuses on the creature's scary face, and the narrator reinforces that this legend is quite special. The reason for all this is shown with a shocking scene of the defeated monster's body. A few days after the attack, the specter's head was found on display at the front gate of the house. And the one who did such a harsh thing was the family's only survivor, the oldest son, who was only 10 years old. The rumors going around the village said that that boy was not human. The scene pulls back, showing a large and busy town, with ancient architecture and mountains in the background. Then the focus shifts to a more humble home, with a thatched roof, located on the outskirts of the village. There, stuck on the front wall, is the specter's head, a grim sight for everyone. A mysterious person in a hat and dark clothes approaches the area, confirming that this is the place the villagers mention. This person is Manhwa, a specter hunter, who thinks about how strange it is to feel sorry for a monster. In a memory, we see the desperate villagers begging Manhwa to eliminate the boy, accusing him of being a demon. Manhwa reflects on the story, finding the idea of a specter turning into a 10-year-old child to be strange. The specter hunter doubts the tale, since not even dozens of children could defeat such a powerful monster. Manhwa then walks up to the door of the house, wondering what he will find inside. Passing through the gate, he spots the young boy sitting alone outside the house. The boy, with his body covered in injuries, turns around and asks who the strange visitor is. The person introduces himself as Manhwa, a specter hunter, and the boy repeats the title, surprised. Manhwa stares at the youth, who remains sitting on the ground looking weak and exhausted. Then, the specter hunter finally understands that this boy is the supposed monster the villagers talked so much about. His empty and lifeless eyes were scary, and Manhwa wonders if that was why everyone was so afraid of him. But the hunter notices a makeshift resting place nearby and, from the boy's dirty body, figures out that he dug it himself. Manhwa also realizes that the youth has gone without food and water for a long time. Without hesitation, the specter hunter places a pot of hot porridge on the ground in front of the boy. He tells the boy to eat, but the youth asks suspiciously why he is receiving this help. The boy asks if Manhwa did not come there to finish him off at the request of the village residents. He explains that the villagers have always disliked him because of his strange eyes, and that now they just want to chase him away. Manhwa listens to everything in silence, processing the boy's sad story. Then, Manhwa sits next to him and asks the youth to tell in detail how he actually managed to defeat the specter. The scene cuts to a red background, indicating the start of a very intense memory. The flashback begins showing the home's wooden floor destroyed and stained. The boy was hiding, looking through a crack while the monster caused destruction in the hallway. He peeked in terror through the boards of a door, seeing the creature in action. A close-up of his eye shows the pure fear he felt in that terrible moment. Suddenly, his face is splashed with the result of the monster's fierce attack. But the fear turns into determination, and the boy stands up holding a bamboo spear, ready to fight. Alone, the youth faces the giant creature that ruined his life, ready for payback. The boy shares that he survived, tracked the monster, sold everything he had, and bought information to get even. Manhwa then asks why he displayed the monster's head, and the boy answers that he wanted to give it the same fate. Although it is hard to believe all of that, Manhwa feels that the boy is not lying. The specter hunter knows that the monster's weakness is a bamboo spear filled with salt, but it is a difficult thing to use. Manhwa realizes that the boy has the drive and bravery of a true, natural-born specter hunter. The youth says that, now that his payback is complete, he has no more regrets in life. With a lost look, he says that all he wishes now is to pass on peacefully to be by his family's side. Unexpectedly, Manhwa gives the boy a firm tap on the cheek, snapping him out of his dark thoughts. The hunter asks his name, and the boy answers that he is called Ice, which Manhwa thinks is a good name. Manhwa then challenges the boy, asking if he really thinks his payback is complete. The specter hunter questions if he is not just settling for less, thinking that was enough. Manhwa continues, saying that Ice lost his family and his will to keep going, meaning he lost absolutely everything. With that, the specter hunter announces that the villagers' request has been cancelled, since Ice is not a monster, and says goodbye. Young Ice is left speechless, just watching the mysterious figure walk away in silence. Back at the village, one of the residents reacts with outrage upon learning of the hunter's decision. Manhwa confirms to the villagers that he will not harm the boy, as he is a human being and not a monster. The residents try to offer more money, but Manhwa simply asks why they dislike that boy so much. One of them shouts that the boy's eyes are creepy, and that he will bring ruin to everyone. Faced with so much resentment, Manhwa coldly replies that, to him, the real monsters are the villagers themselves. The hunter scolds them for treating a child like a monster, and warns that their bitterness will only attract more specters. Out of patience with the men's stubbornness, Mong Ryan realizes they're not the type to listen calmly. Suddenly, a small horn begins to grow on Mong Ryan's forehead, sending the villagers into a panic. Revealing his true nature, he warns the residents, saying that if they bother the boy again, they will have to deal with him. He then introduces himself as a Dakabi, a mystical creature who will punish them if they disobey. The men step back thinking he is a specter, but Mong Ryan explains that he is a Dakabi, an ally to humans. He understands that to them they all look like monsters, but even so, he cancels the request for good. Shocked, the villagers cannot believe that even the specter hunter was a supernatural creature. The group's leader becomes desperate, not knowing what to do now that his plan has failed. With a face full of anger, he decides that there is no other choice but to handle it themselves. At night, the residents gather with tools and torches, determined to protect the village with their own hands. Sparks fly through the darkness, showing that the villagers' plan has already been put into action. An angry crowd surrounds Ai's house, ready to burn it all to the ground. The village leader laughs wildly, shouting that they should have done this from the very beginning. As the house is swallowed by the flames, they cheer, certain that this will chase the monster away forever. Ai tries desperately to protect his family's resting place, punching the flames with his bare hands. With a terrifying smile, the village leader shouts for the boy to be consumed by the fire along with the rest. At that moment, a dark purple energy begins to radiate from the villagers' hatred. The people turn to dark figures with red eyes glowing in the darkness. All that resentment merges, creating a new giant specter with multiple faces. The massive creature towers over Ai, shouting to burn everything that exists there. The boy looks up, shocked to realize that the hatred of those people gave life to a new monster. The specter's face is a twisted mix of the angry faces of the village residents. From its mouth, the creature shoots a purple energy blast shaped like a skull toward Ai. The youth widens his eyes, seeing the dangerous attack heading his way with nowhere to run. The strike hits him head-on, launching the boy far away with the impact of the blast. Ai rolls across the ground from the force of the attack, feeling his body crash heavily against the dirt. Down and badly hurt, he can barely move after taking the direct attack from the specter. His greatest despair is seeing the purple flames consuming the place where his family rested. Ai clenches his fist tightly, feeling a wave of anger and helplessness take over him. Gathering his last bit of strength, the boy stands up with a tool in hand, facing the new specter. He thinks that it was not enough to take his family. Now they are stealing his chance to rest peacefully beside them. The face of one of the villagers, now part of the monster, lets out a cruel and deafening laugh. With an angry shout, Ai charges forward and strikes one of the creature's heads with all his might. He attacks without stopping, thinking that he had already lost everything that mattered in his life. Surrounded by enemies, the youth wonders if there is still anything else he can lose. Mong Ryan's words echo in his mind, questioning if his payback was truly complete. The question about him having settled for less hits him, and Ai's hand grips the weapon tighter. An overwhelming fury explodes from inside the boy, who roars with his face twisted in anger. A massive purple energy begins to swirl around him, responding to his feelings. The power surrounds him completely, as Ai unleashes all the pain and anger he held inside. The memory of everything he lost feeds this new strength, turning the boy into something new. Mong Ryan's voice echoes in his mind, asking how he can be satisfied with taking down just one specter. The image shows the monster formed by the villagers' hatred, a twisted creature full of rage. In a scary close-up, we see the specter's mouth with huge, sharp teeth, ready to devour everything. But before it could attack, Ai drives his weapon with all his might right into the creature's eye. The strike lands perfectly, and the youth is wrapped in a purple aura while the monster steps back in pain. With a new power flowing through his body, Ai reaches out his hand and realizes the truth about his payback. He understands that his journey will only end when the very last specter in the world is wiped out. After this realization, the boy's body reaches its limit and his hand drops helplessly. Ai loses consciousness and begins to fall, exhausted by the battle and the newly awakened power. At the last second, Mong Ryan's hand appears and grabs his arm, saving him from the fall. Mong Ryan lands firmly on the ground, absorbing the impact and protecting the passed-out boy. Holding Ai in his arms, the Dakabi turns to face the giant specter of hatred. The monster's eye still has Ai's weapon stuck in it, and it stares at the new threat in surprise. Mong Ryan looks at the boy in his arms, impressed by his courage to not back down from danger. He wraps Ai in his cloak and says that the boy was truly impressive in that fight. Next, Mong Ryan turns to the specter and says that, compared to Ai, they are pathetic. He explains that their bad karma and grudge created the dark energy that attracts specters. Mong Ryan suggests that even the first monster that attacked the village might have been drawn by their hatred. With a commanding gesture, he orders the specter to repent and pay for its mistakes against the boy's family. With a single and powerful strike, Mong Ryan completely destroys the creature of dark energy. The monster does not even have a chance to react, and its teeth shatter from the force of the devastating attack. The creature falls apart amid a cry of pain, unable to resist the Dakabi's power. Mong Ryan finishes the specter off, commenting that for a big guy, he was quite loud. Sometime later, Ai wakes up, and the first thing that comes to his mind is his new life goal. Mong Ryan watches him and says that this is a great choice, and that better days will come if he pulls through. The Dakabi then places the hurt boy on his back, ready to take him to a safe place. He promises to look after Eyes until the youth becomes strong enough to achieve his payback. The scene changes to a peaceful day, with an orange butterfly flying near a house. The butterfly approaches Mong Ryan's purple hair as he stands in silence. It lands gently on his shoulder while he watches Eyes sleeping and recovering in her room. The boy mumbles a bit while he sleeps, still healing from the severe injuries of the battle. Sitting on the porch, Mong Ryan notices that Eyes is moving and asks if he has finally woken up. Eyes opens his eyes and sees Mong Ryan's true form, who introduces himself again as a specter hunter. Mong Ryan says that if Eyes wants to resent him for saving him on a pure whim, he is free to do so. In his mind, Eyes relives the terrifying image of the specter he faced the night before. He also remembers the painful scene of his family's resting place being destroyed by the flames. The last memory he has is of Mong Ryan carrying him away from the destruction. Eyes confirms to himself that none of that was a dream and that his family's resting place was ruined. Looking at his bandaged body, he notices that, surprisingly, there is not a single burn mark. Eyes thanks Mong Ryan for the care, and the Dokabi is surprised by the boy's calmness upon seeing him. The youth says that species does not matter, because Mong Ryan was good to him, showing an open mind. Mong Ryan simply confirms the boy's name and Eyes answers that yes, his name is Eyes. The Dokabi then asks if the youth thought about his offer to learn the arts of exorcism. Eyes understands the proposal, but thinks it is all too good to be true and gets a little suspicious. With a smile, Mong Ryan praises the boy's sharpness and warns him to be prepared in case he accepts. He explains that the place they are going to is the Dokabi realm, a harsh environment for humans. And most importantly, Mong Ryan warns that his training is so tough that every single day will feel like a nightmare. Eyes stays silent for a moment, repeating the word nightmare in his mind. But shortly after, he answers that he likes the idea, because only then can he dream of wiping out all the specters. With total determination, Eyes looks at Mong Ryan and declares that he will follow him. Seeing the determined expression on Eyes' face, Mong Ryan admits that he was just trying to scare him a little. Because of this, he tells the boy to eat, since he needs to recover before they can go anywhere. Mong Ryan then pushes a hot bowl toward Eyes, offering the meal to the youth. With a slight smile, the Dokabi tells Eyes to make sure to eat everything this time. The boy obeys and starts eating in bed, agreeing to regain his strength for the journey ahead. After some time, the scene changes to a foggy mountain landscape, showing an isolated and mysterious place. They walk along a dangerous trail, and Eyes comments that the place looks spooky, being warned not to let go of the rope. After a long walk through that strange terrain, Mong Ryan finally announces that they have reached their destination. Before them stands a giant gate, and Mong Ryan reveals that it is the Phantom Guardian Temple. A sign at the entrance confirms the name of the place, with an inscription saying that humans must return home. Eyes asks if it is safe for a human to enter the Dokabi realm, and Mong Ryan jokes about whether he is scared. The boy explains that he was only worried about causing trouble, and Mong Ryan finds the youth's attitude quite strange. To calm him down, the Dokabi says that no one there would dare question the temple chief's decision. The word chief makes Eyes curious, not exactly understanding who his new master was talking about. The youth looks around, taking in the new environment and trying to process the information he just received. Passing through the gate, Eyes comes across an incredible sight, a valley with magnificent buildings and lush nature. He is amazed, realizing that it is a completely different world, and Mong Ryan asks if he did not find it beautiful. Eyes watches the residents from a distance and wonders if all those people are also Dokavis like his master. Nearby, some temple guards notice the boy's presence and question how a human dares to enter that place. The two blue-haired Dokavis look at each other, clearly bothered by the intruder's arrival. But before they could do anything, Mong Ryan steps forward and announces for everyone to hear that Eyes is his new student. His powerful voice echoes through the valley, declaring that the boy is the new family member and must be treated well. Hearing the announcement, the expression of the other Dokavis changes completely, showing respect. One of them comments with a smile that, if the chief brought him, then everything is fine and is great to have a new member. Eyes is impressed to see that everyone accepted his presence with a single word from Mong Ryan. He thinks that maybe his master is even more amazing than he imagined, while Mong Ryan smiles in satisfaction. Mong Ryan then takes Eyes to a feast, saying that the most important thing in hunting specters is eating well. He calls the cook and asks to bring more dishes, with a special focus on lots of meat for the boy. Eyes gets confused with so much food and asks the chief what that has to do with hunting monsters. Petting the boy's head, Mong Ryan explains that he has a major problem when it comes to exorcism. The problem is that Eyes forgets he is still a child, and a child's main duty is to eat and sleep a lot. Mong Ryan warns him that if he does not strengthen his body now, he will deeply regret it when he becomes a hunter. The youth understands the logic and agrees that, if that is necessary for his payback, he will eat it all. Without hesitation, Eyes starts eating eagerly, to the satisfaction of his new master who watches him. While they are at the table, a new person approaches, calling out for the chief with an excited voice. It is Gong, a young Dokabi girl who works at the temple, and she arrives bringing even more meat for Eyes. Mong Ryan says he needs to leave to handle some matters and asks Gong to look after Eyes until he finishes eating. The girl eagerly accepts the task, and Eyes thinks that nightmare of a training feels more like an endless feast. Gong introduces herself to Eyes and, curious because he does not have horns, asks how old he is. She is totally shocked to learn that he is only 10 years old, since he seems more mature than her, who is 22. An older Dakabi passing by explains that humans age twice as fast as Dakabis. Gong Ai then declares herself as his older sister, and he replies that she must be happy to have a little brother. The cook smiles and asks Gong Ai to take good care of her new little brother, and she promises she will. Ai watches the interaction in silence, perhaps feeling a drop of normalcy for the first time in a long while. After eating so much, the boy gets up from the table with his hand on his stomach, feeling completely stuffed. Gong Ai laughs and tells him not to worry, because since he is young, he will digest it all very fast. She comments that Ai is very lucky to be trained by the chief himself, which will make the others jealous. The girl reveals that Mong Ryan is a living legend who has been hunting specters for over 300 years. Ai is shocked by the information, realizing that the difference between humans and Dakabis is truly massive. He looks at Gong Ai and at the memory of Mong Ryan, thinking that, despite everything, they do not seem so different. He remembers Gong Ai's smile and realizes that he is feeling a warmth and a welcoming feeling that never existed in his old village. This feeling is so new to him that it even feels strange, but his thoughts are interrupted by a voice calling him. Gong Ai recognizes the group of young Dakabis, who question Ai for daring to enter their realm and even training with the chief. The group leader, a blue-haired boy with a threatening look, approaches and says they need to have a little chat. Gong Ai identifies the group as the crew of Il Choi, Wal Jiang, and Go Jiel, and her expression shows they are trouble. Ai stares at the blue-haired youth, wondering what kind of person he would be and if his intentions were friendly. The scene changes to an outdoor training yard with the sun setting in the background, creating a tense mood. Gong Ai is held back by the other two boys as she yells at Il Choi, asking what he thinks he is doing. Before them, Ai takes his stance ready for whatever comes next, even though he is at a clear disadvantage. Gong Ai warns that the chief will not like this one bit, but Il Choi replies that a sparring session is normal at the temple. He reveals that he just wants to show the human his place, so that he gives up on being a hunter and does not get taken down for being weak. In his thoughts, Il Choi reveals his true jealousy, wondering why the chief would teach Ai instead of him. Ai understands the situation and realizes that it is just a spar, although it feels much more like bullying. With surprising calmness, the boy apologizes, saying he thought they were just trying to intimidate him. He says that as a guest, he figured he should just take it, and Gong Ai is shocked by his innocence. Ai's comment makes Il Choi even more annoyed, not knowing how to react to that unexpected answer. Without warning, the young Dakabi steps forward and lands a powerful punch on Ai's face. Il Choi does not stop and continues to unleash a series of fast strikes against the boy, who can barely defend himself. He shouts that Ai is just a weak human, and that he is acting tough only because Il Choi is holding back so he does not go too far. Ai keeps taking hits, receiving several blows to his face and body without being able to fight back. Il Choi gets frustrated because even though he is beating up the boy, he feels no satisfaction from it. What bothers him the most is that, even while taking a beating, Ai never closes his eyes for a single moment. Annoyed by the boy's steady stare, Il Choi prepares for another strike, but Ai finally says that his attacks have a pattern. The reveal catches everyone by surprise, including Il Choi himself, who pauses for a moment. Taking advantage of the opening, Ai dodges and, with amazing speed, readies a counterattack. Il Choi's eye, which has a reptile-like pupil, widens as he sees the boy's fist coming his way. Ai lands a clean punch on Il Choi's face, who is not expecting that reaction. The strike is so strong that the Dakabi feels the impact and takes a step back, surprised by the human strength. Il Choi drops to his knees, feeling the heavy impact, while Ai gets ready to continue. But Ai realizes that his reach is too short and understands what the chief meant about eating to be able to grow. He turns to his opponent and asks Il Choi not to hold back next time. Ai holds out his hand and explains that he needs to fight seriously, because a real specter would never show him any mercy. With a look full of determination, he suggests that they spar again some other time. Later that night, the mood at the Phantom Guardian Temple is calm and quiet. Mong Ryan returns and finds Ai, noticing right away that something happened to the boy. He points out that Ai is all bruised up on his very first day at the temple. The chief asks if Il Choi's crew bothered him, but Ai insists that it was just a simple sparring session. Mong Ryan then uses his power of green healing energy to treat the boy's injuries. Ai recognizes the magic, and Mong Ryan says that it is normal for kids to fight, but that he should come to him if things get too tough. The chief asks if he managed to land a hit on Il Choi, and Ai answers that he does not need to worry. Ai lies, saying that Il Choi was not hit a single time and that he knows he should not cause trouble. Suddenly, Mong Ryan lifts him into the air by his shirt collar, getting his attention in an unexpected way. The chief scolds him for calling him that, and Ai realizes he must have upset his master. Mong Ryan reminds him that he was introduced as family, so he must stop acting like a mere guest. Ai then decides to clear things up, saying that he did not take a beating on purpose just because he is new there. He admits the truth, explaining that he simply could not land a single strike on Il Choi, who fought seriously. Mong Ryan says that this is obvious, because Il Choi has enough talent to go toe-to-toe with adults. Ai gets curious and asks if, with all that strength, Il Choi would be able to hunt specters. Mong Ryan's answer is direct and surprising. He states that Il Choi would certainly not survive. The chief ends the chat, leaving a mystery in the air about how Eyes, who is weaker, managed to beat a specter. Mong Ryan explains that the art of exorcism is not just about brute strength but about strategy. He points out that Il Chai lacks knowledge while Eyes lacks strength, and that both would fail if they relied only on that. The chief concludes that only by combining knowledge and martial skill can one practice true exorcism. With the lesson over, Mong Ryan announces that he will give Eyes his first task to start the real training. The first part of the training is purely physical, with Eyes running through the temple streets until he is exhausted. Besides running, the boy does push-ups and other heavy exercises to strengthen his still-growing body. The second part of the training is mental, and Eyes spends hours upon hours in the library, surrounded by stacks of books. Gulna watches the boy from a distance, looking a bit bored and perhaps worried about his routine. She walks over and invites him to play, but Eyes explains that he needs to finish his task so he can train in exorcism. He reveals that the mission given by the chief is to read every single book in that library to prove his knowledge. Gulna is horrified by the idea, but Eyes calmly says he does not mind because he likes to read. She then asks why he is always covered in bruises, and Eyes reveals the third part of the task to win a fight. The young Dakabi gets confused, not exactly understanding what kind of fight her new friend needs to win. The scene cuts to the training yard where Eyes is sitting on the ground, totally defeated by El Choi. The young Dakabi complains that Eyes challenges him to spar every day and that he cannot even go all out. Gulna finally understands where Eyes' injuries come from, while El Choi shouts that it is not even a real fight. She thinks about how impossible that task is, since a human could never beat a Dakabi in brute strength. Eyes gets up and tells El Choi that sparring is just prep work for actual combat against specters. The young Dakabi stumps hard on the ground, showing that his patience is running out with that talk. With a threatening aura, Il Choi warns that if Eyes comes back the next day, he will really hurt him. Seeing the threat, Gulna runs and steps in front of Eyes to protect him, telling Il Choi to stop. Il Choi grumbles, calling Eyes a coward for hiding behind a girl, and walks away annoyed. But Eyes calls him back and tells him they should spar again, and that he will not blame him if he ends up hurt. The Dakabi stays silent for a moment, perhaps surprised by the human boy's resolve. Il Choi then comes to the conclusion that this human boy is completely crazy. He and his group turn their backs on Eyes and leave, leaving the boy behind in the yard. The very next day, however, Eyes is already there, calling out for Il Choi for another round of training. Il Choi cannot believe the boy's persistence, who even after losing, comes back to challenge him every single day. The young Dakabi lands another punch on Eyes, frustrated that he cannot use his full strength against him. He yells at Eyes to give up, saying he has no talent, and that a human will never be able to beat a Dakabi. The seasons start to pass, showing that the routine of training and getting beat up continues for a long time. After yet another loss, Eyes stands up, but Il Choi notices something strange in the boy's behavior. He notices that Eyes' eyes look distant, as if they are no longer focused on him during the fight. Il Choi is puzzled by that look, trying to figure out what is going on in his opponent's head. Eyes' indifferent attitude begins to deeply annoy the young Dakabi, who feels ignored. Not wanting to be left behind, Il Choi also starts training alone, taking his anger out on a straw dummy. He wonders if Eyes thinks he just stands still while the boy trains, showing his competitive side. Il Choi's real motive is to protect his place, Gulna's affection, and the chief's approval. He convinces himself that his talent is superior, and that the fist of a simple human will never reach him. The leaves on the trees begin to fall, showing that autumn has arrived and time keeps passing. The setting changes, with the colors of autumn painting the landscape of the Phantom Guardian Temple. The image reveals that a whole year has passed since Eyes arrived to begin his training. Gulna and the other members of Il Choi's group look at the scene with an expression of total disbelief. Il Choi is standing still, with his hand on his face and his eyes wide, completely shocked by what just happened. On the other side, Eyes looks at his own fist, also surprised, and realizes that his strike finally landed. The scene repeats Il Choi's shock, who cannot believe he was hit by that boy. We see Eyes' surprise again, who, after a year of trying, finally managed to land a punch. Il Choi tries to cover it up, saying he just slipped by mistake, refusing to admit what Eyes accomplished. But the embarrassment quickly turns into anger, and he charges forward, shouting that he will defeat that human. He tries a high kick, but Eyes, now much more agile, dodges the strike with ease. Il Choi cannot believe the boy is dodging all of his attacks, even though he trained hard the whole year. Seeing his rival's frustration, Eyes finally understands what it means to need knowledge and martial skill. During his training, he learned that most demons have unmatched physical strength. Because of this, humans cannot compete in brute strength, so there is a limit to hunting them with just the body. Il Choi attempts a direct strike, but Eyes stops it with the palm of his hand, showing a new confidence. The only thing that allows a human to overcome this strength limit is something that Il Choi does not have. In a flashback, we see Eyes studying, and the narration reveals that this secret weapon is knowledge. Eyes uses this knowledge to predict Il Choi's next move and dodge flawlessly. He understands that knowing the enemy's weak points and attack patterns makes any task possible. But as Eyes himself felt firsthand, this knowledge is useless if his strikes do not hit the target. That is why, besides studying, he had to develop something else that is very important for a hunter. And this other part of the equation is his martial skill, which he trained nonstop for a whole year. Aiz then unloads a series of quick and precise strikes on Il Chui's body, who cannot defend himself. The boy knows that only by completely mastering both knowledge and fighting will he have a chance. And with a powerful uppercut, he launches Il Chui into the air, proving that a human can indeed hunt demons. Gong Ao Wol Jiang and Gui Jiu watch the scene completely shocked, unable to believe what they are seeing. She cannot process how Aiz beat Il Chui in just 1 year of training. And the most shocking part is that the victory was total, with Il Chui lying on the ground completely defeated. Time passes and life at the temple continues, with Aiz's victory changing the dynamic among everyone. While walking, Gong keeps praising Aiz, who jokes that she is amazing for talking without stopping. Suddenly, they spot Mong Ryan approaching with a group of dakebis dressed in black. The chief walks ahead of his squad with a serious expression, focused on his next mission. Aiz and Gong step closer to greet their master, who seems to be heading out somewhere. Mong Ryan lets them know that he will have to be away for a few days, because he has an important task to complete. He explains that every year he goes on a demon hunt to keep the alliance strong and protect humans. In a quick flashback, Aiz remembers his first encounter with the chief and understands why he was in his village. Mong Ryan then asks how the task he gave Aiz is going, and Gong gets all excited to tell him. Before she can speak, Il Chui walks up and puts his arm around Aiz's shoulders. With a smile on his face, he admits in front of everyone that Aiz beat him in the fight. Il Chui acknowledges that the boy was amazing and promises to work harder so he does not lose next time. Aiz is completely suspicious, finding it weird that his rival suddenly started calling him by his name. Mong Ryan smiles, happy to see that the two are finally getting along, and praises Il Chui for his maturity. The young Dakebi gets all shy at the compliment, and Gong realizes that this was his intention all along. With the matter settled, the chief says goodbye and asks them to keep getting along well. Gui Jiu approaches Aiz, saying he is glad that he worked things out with his brother Il Chui. Il Chui asks since when Gui Jiu became such good friends with Aiz, and the boy replies that he was just waiting for them to make up. The group leader then invites Aiz to hang out with them, and Gong quickly invites herself to go along. Il Chui says it is an outing just for the brothers, but Wol Jiang steps in, reminding him that the decision is not his to make. He holds Gong back so she does not complain, and Aiz blushes upon being called a brother by the Dakebi. Night falls over the Dakebi realm with a full moon shining in the starry sky. The group of youths heads to an isolated building, a place that seems to be an armory. The door is locked with an old padlock, showing that access is restricted. Inside the armory, there's a huge collection of spears, swords, and other hunting weapons. Il Chui goes back to calling Aiz a lesser human, and tells him to hurry up and pick a weapon for what comes next. He then proposes a new challenge, a hunt for a real demon to see who is the best. Aiz reminds him that the chief forbade them from going out, and that it is not even guaranteed they will find a demon out there. But Gui Jiu shares that the adults heard a baby crying, which must be a child demon wandering the area. Il Chui seems to rethink the idea, perhaps sensing the danger and suggesting they give up on going out. Using what he learned, Aiz warns that it is dangerous, because over 10 types of demons make that sound, and some are very deadly. Il Chui ignores the warning, saying that Aiz is just showing off for having read a few books, and grabs a weapon. Aiz refuses to go, but Il Chui accuses him of using them to choose an excuse for being scared, and decides to go without him. Without giving the boy any more attention, Il Chui calls his friends and tells them to get ready for the hunt. As they leave the armory, the young Dakebi mocks Aiz, calling him a pathetic fool. Aiz remains quiet, watching the group walk away with a serious and thoughtful look on his face. A short time later, the three young Dakebis walk alone through a dark and thick forest at night. Il Chui holds his iron club, excitedly saying that he feels the blood of a hunter rushing in his veins. He sees the hunt as a rite of passage, and Gui Jiu cheers that they will finally become hunters. With a smirk, Il Chui turns around, as if he were about to tease someone who is not there. But, to his surprise, Aiz followed them, and Gui Jiu teases him for choosing an axe for the hunt. In his thoughts, Il Chui smiles, convinced that the human is completely terrified of the situation. He mentally brags about being different, recalling a time when he even touched a demon's body as a child. While Il Chui plans to get even for his defeat, Aiz only worries if everyone will be okay, since he could not stop them. The boy remembers his studies and thinks that, if it is a child demon, Il Chui will be able to handle it easily. Even so, Aiz keeps walking through the dark forest with a watchful and slightly anxious look. Suddenly, a baby's cry echoes through the woods, but the young hunter fears that the worst-case scenario is coming true. The dreadful sound that seems like a baby actually comes from the mouth of a monstrous and shapeless creature. The cries keep echoing through the forest, creating an atmosphere of pure terror for the young adventurers. From the shadows, a bizarre horse-like creature emerges, with its body covered in skulls and spikes. A close-up on the monster's face reveals its gross appearance, with a mouth full of teeth and red eyes. Unaware of the danger, the four boys continue their search for the source of the mysterious sound in the dark. Il Chui gets impatient, wondering where the creature is, since he was sure the sound came from there. Seeing that there is nothing, Aiz suggests that they just head back to the temple, which annoys Il Chui. The young Dakebi gets furious, accusing Aiz of looking down on him because of his victory in the fight they had. Aiz denies the accusation and sincerely says that he does not think he is stronger just for winning once. He explains that he just got lucky and caught Il Choi off guard, and that the fight would have been different otherwise. The Dakabi gets flustered by the compliment, and Aiz confirms that, after 1 year, he knows how strong his friend is. He goes on, saying he recognizes how amazing Il Choi's physical strength and fighting skills are. Completely embarrassed, Il Choi tries to hide his joy and says the compliment was not too bad. Realizing his mistake, he offers to be as his older brother, to seal the friendship between them. Aiz gives a genuine smile and says he is very happy, because he always wanted an older brother in his life. The boy's pure and happy reaction leaves Il Choi totally awkward, his face blushing with embarrassment. But their chat is suddenly cut short by a familiar sound coming from the darkness of the forest. It is the baby's cry again, and they finally find what they believe to be a dongjagwi, a child demon. Il Choi gets excited and declares a contest to see who catches the creature first, and Gui Jil agrees right away. He runs ahead, telling Aiz to watch closely how a real older brother gets the job done. With his eyes shining with determination, Il Choi charges toward the sound, ready to prove his worth. The source of the cry, however, is a strange stone statue shaped like a baby's face. Wol Jang asks Il Choi to slow down, and the group leader checks if a dongjui really looks like a baby. Wol Jang nervously agrees that yes, that looks like a baby, but his expression shows that something is wrong. The statue's mouth begins to open and twist, making a strange and creepy sound. The stone face breaks apart, revealing a shapeless mass with empty eyes and an open mouth. Suddenly, the creature reveals itself completely, a monster with dozens of heads and grim smiles. Aiz right away yells for everyone to run, realizing that is definitely not a dongjagwi. The monster is a mass of bodies and faces, with arms that end in mouths full of sharp teeth. The creature attacks with its many arms, moving with a surprising and deadly speed. Il Choi and Wol Jang are caught off guard and struck heavily by the creature's limbs. Gui Jil freezes in fear as he sees the monster's pointy limbs coming his way. He is hit head-on and launched into the air, crying out in pain from the impact of the harsh blow. Aiz defends himself with a shield he brought just in case, but gets frantic thinking about what happened to the others. He widens his eyes in pure terror as he sees the awful scene unfolding before him in the forest. The creature attacks Il Choi, biting his shoulder with one of its mouths and making him scream in agony. The young Dakabi twists in pain, feeling the monster's teeth tearing into him without mercy. Gui Jil is also lying on the ground, badly hurt and crying from fear and pain after being attacked. The monster keeps attacking the group with its long and bizarre arms, giving them no chance to recover. In a close-up, we see the creature's many faces, all with expressions of pure evil and cruelty. Aiz remembers reading about demon threat levels, which range from 9 to 1, based on the survival rate. He knows that demons from levels 9 to 7 are considered low-level, with survival rates between 90 and 70%. However, starting at level 6, classified as mid-level, a rookie's chance of surviving drops sharply. For a level 6 demon, a beginner hunter's survival rate is only 20%. And the creature they are facing is exactly an Aishanjaoma, a threat level 6 demon. Aiz realizes the situation is as bad as it gets because they were tricked by the sound and ran into a powerful monster. To make matters worse, that survival rate is for official hunters, and they are just trainees who are already hurt. With despair taking over, the boy comes to the conclusion that they will all perish if they stay there. His mind starts working fast, trying to find the best choice they have to get out of that situation. Nearby, Il Choi tries to stand up, but the pain from the injury on his shoulder is too strong. He screams in pain and disgust, realizing that demons are much scarier than he ever imagined. Remorse hits him hard, and he blames himself for suggesting that reckless hunt that put everyone in danger. Meanwhile, Gui Jil is hit again, and the impact causes him to cough heavily. Il Choi realizes that Gui Jiljury is critical and that his life is on the line if he is not treated soon. Despair takes over Il Choi, who cries without knowing what to do, feeling that they will all be lost. He wonders if they could escape the monster, especially carrying Gui Jil, who is severely hurt. In his mind, a cold and calculating voice suggests the only logical way out to survive, leaving Gui Jil behind and running away. Aiz approaches the two injured Dakabis with the shield in hand and a serious look on his face. Il Choi, shocked, asks if it was Aiz who suggested leaving their friend behind. The boy explains that Gui Jil's injury is very severe and that he will not hold on until they reach the temple. While Il Choi gets angry, Aiz points out that the monster stopped attacking, which is very strange. He remembers reading that type of demon feeds on the negative emotions of its prey. Aiz concludes that the creature is waiting for them to make a choice or abandon their friend or fall together. He knows that the monster wants them to abandon Gui Jil to feed on their despair and guilt. Il Choi understands the logic but cries in frustration, as this seemed to be the only way to make it out alive. Gui Jil, with his last bit of strength, hears the conversation and panics, asking if he is really going to not make it. He looks at the monster's outline getting closer in the dark, ready to deliver the final blow. The creature grabs Gui Jil's head with its claws, getting ready to consume him. Il Choi screams in despair, unable to do anything to save his brother. But at the last second, Aiz dashes forward with impressive speed, determined to step into the situation. The boy leaves a bag on the ground and runs toward the monster, who stares at him with its red eyes. The bag he left behind starts to give off a strange glow, revealing to be some kind of explosive. A huge explosion of light goes off in the middle of the forest, covering everyone in its flash. Il Choi shields his eyes from the intense light, not understanding what is going on. Gui Jiul is also caught in the blast, feeling the impact of the shockwave spreading out. Amid the confusion, El Choi apologizes to his friend and swears he will defeat that demon once and for all. The light from the blast lights up the whole forest, creating a chaotic and desperate scene. When the light finally fades, smoke and dust take over the site of the clash. Rushed footsteps are heard, showing that someone is running away from there. Il Choi and Wol Jang run away as fast as they can, panting and exhausted from the battle. Gui Jiul is lying on the ground, crying from pain and fear, with his hands dirty from his injuries. He looks around and notices he is alone, wondering if everyone really ran away and abandoned him. But then he sees El Choi and Wol Jang running toward him, and not away from him. They carry Gui Jiul and keep running, with El Choi shouting his friend's name, desperate. Gui Jiul, relieved, says it is better this way, because he does not want everyone to be lost because of him. Amid tears, El Choi begs his friend to forget about payback and just please stay alive. The image shows Gui Jiul paralyzed by fear, facing his doom in the form of the terrible Izangyangma. The creature moves nimbly through the forest, its creepy outline standing out against a red background. In a flashback, we see Eyes as a child, hiding behind a tree while his family was being attacked. The painful memory shows one of his family members falling motionless to the ground, a scene that loops in his mind. He vividly remembers the monster consuming his family, a trauma that haunts him to this day. The flashback focuses on the creature's cruel red eyes, which now blend with the image of the Izangyangma. Back to the present, Gui Jiul is taken in by the monster, and his last words are of betrayal and despair. He screams, asking how his friends could simply leave him behind to face his end alone. Who was running away, stops for a moment and looks back, his face filled with horror and guilt. The Izangyangma now has Gui Jiul's face among its skulls, and promises to join them soon. Meanwhile, at the Guisu temple, the Dakabis run with torches, in a rush to set up a search. Gonga is woken up by the commotion and, sleepy, wonders what is causing so much noise at that hour. An older Dakabi woman explains that the noise woke her up, and that all the boys have vanished from the temple. Gonga panics, and the lady informs her that the guards have already warned the chief and gone out to look for them. She remembers El Choi's invitation from earlier and realizes, horrified, that they actually left the temple. Her face fills with fear, understanding the grave danger her friends are facing in the forest. Alone at the gate, she prays that everyone manages to come back home safely. Far away, Ys runs desperately through the forest, heading back to the site of the battle. In his thoughts, he reflects on the tough choices he has already had to make in his short life. He remembers his family's passing once again, a moment that defined his entire path up to this point. Ys thinks that, if everyone had faced the monster together, they would have been defeated, and that the sacrifice was the only option. The scene of hiding and surviving while his family was taken away repeats in his mind. He recalls his plan to track the demon instead of falling senselessly, a logical but painful choice. At that moment, he believed that this was the best decision he could have made to get his payback. But remembering Gui Jiul's kindness and friendship, Ys realizes the weight of that cold choice. That decision torments him, making him feel a deep sense of self-disgust. The boy concludes that all this suffering, all this pain, only happens because demons exist in the world. He finally makes it back to the area, but finds an adult Dakabi standing there, glaring at him with anger. The man is Gochian, one of the temple's rangers, and he is furious with the boy's attitude. Gochian scolds him for the mess they caused and warns that they will all get a huge lecture from the chief. The guard then asks where the other boys are, and Ys' expression turns grim. Ys reports that they ran into an Izangyangma split up and that Gui Jiul was taken by the monster. Gochian is completely shocked and furious upon hearing the terrible news about the young Dakabi. He clenches his fist so hard that his fingers tremble from pure rage and helplessness. The guard demands to know where the demon is, and Ys describes the creature's look as a horse with many faces. Gochian orders Ys back to the temple, but the boy finds it odd that the ranger does not know about that demon. Ys warns him that it is a mid-level monster, but Gochian brags, saying that he is one of the 5 strongest in the temple. The youth stays silent, clearly worried about the guard's cockiness in the face of a real danger. Determined, Ys offers to go along, but Gochian refuses, claiming it is too dangerous for him. The boy insists, arguing that he knows the exact location of the monster and that the priority is to save the others. Gochian finally gives in, but issues a clear order the moment they see the demon. Ys must run away without hesitation. In another part of the forest, Il Choi bites on a branch to bear the pain while tending to his injury. With an agonized scream, he pulls out one of the monster's teeth that was stuck in his shoulder. The remains of the creature's attacks are scattered on the ground, showing the fierceness of the battle. Il Choi asks if Wol Jang is okay, and his friend answers yes despite the pain he is feeling. The young leader feels guilty over Gui Jiul's passing and questions if it is right that they survived. In a fit of rage and guilt, he blames Ys for confusing them with his talk and strategy. But Wol Jang interrupts him, reminding him that if it were not for Ys, they would all have been lost, and that the real mistake was running away. Il Choi freezes with a look of pure horror upon realizing the truth in his friend's words. Suddenly, a strange child's cry echoes through the dark forest and catches the young Dakabi's attention. Il Choi's eyes fill with tears as he turns around, completely horrified. Hovering over him floats a grotesque creature that looks like a deformed baby and is connected to bizarre cords. Hurting badly around his chest area, the boy quickly figures out that it must be a Dongjagwi demon. The bizarre creature lets out a disturbing laugh while watching the young warrior suffering. Next, the monster screams with all its might and releases an intense red energy around its body. Without thinking twice, El Chol Choi charges at the creature, asking how a lesser demon dares to attack him. The youth cries out of anger, claiming he would have destroyed the monster earlier if he had not been influenced by eyes. He warns that he will avenge Gui Jiul with his iron club and agrees that his fallen friend was right. Tears roll down the boy's face as he yells that he will wipe out all the demons in the area. Consumed by hatred, he promises to avenge his friend in front of a giant shadow surrounded by grim faces. The warrior uses all his strength and lands a crushing blow with the club on the stained ground. But at that very moment, his face twists in shock upon noticing something terrible in the scene around him. A dark figure hovers threateningly over Wol Jang's fallen and lifeless body amid the darkness. With no way to defend himself, Il Chai is captured and lifted off the ground by the claws of the giant, multi-faced creature. The Isyanjiama breaks into a cruel smile and enjoys seeing the despair of its new cornered prey. With a ruthless grip, the monster squeezes the young warrior's body and leaves him with almost no strength to fight. Still holding his weapon, Il Chai props himself up on the ground and promises to crush the giant creature just like he did the baby. He stares at the enemy with red eyes full of pure fury and swears to fight to the very end for his brothers in arms. The boy charges forward screaming for payback, but ends up being swallowed by several scary jaws of the monster. Trapped between sharp teeth, he mutters about retaliation while waiting for the final blow amid the chaos. However, mysterious warrior drops from the sky, unleashing a powerful attack right onto the creature's back. Gochian lands furiously and questions how the demon dares to lay its filthy hands on a student of the Guisu temple. Il Choi widens his eyes, completely surprised and relieved to see that help finally arrived on time. The adult gives no openings and lands a heavy blow that launches the demonic beast far away into the dark forest. Next, Gochin asks to get Il Chai out of there as fast as possible while he deals with the threat. The protagonist helps the survivor up while the boy cries with relief seeing that his uncle is safe. The dark creature grinds its sharp teeth, showing huge annoyance at having its hunt cut short. Wasting no time, the experienced warrior uses his wooden staff and starts a series of lightning-fast attacks. The multi-faced monster lets out a roar of pain as it is bombarded by heavy strikes to its head. Gochian declares that the demon will suffer greatly for trying to ruin the future of the temple's young warriors. Aiz watches the fight in awe and concludes that the adult truly has the strength to defeat the Izyan Yangma. Badly bruised, El Chai leans on the protagonist and confesses to being the one truly responsible for the fall of his friends. Aiz tells the boy to retreat on his own because he intends to stay there to help the uncle in the fight against the creature. The protagonist remembers an old teaching and understands that hunting demons does not depend only on brute strength. As Gochian moves forward, the youth realizes that the warrior will need help with the beast's dirty tricks. Determined to end the fight, the adult prepares an ultimate attack to finish the abomination off once and for all. But suddenly the demon's faces take the shape of the fallen children, begging him to stop hitting. The warrior's eye widens in panic as he recognizes the identical voices of his lost young students. Unable to think straight, he immediately lowers his guard and whispers the boys' names with a choked voice. Taking advantage of the distraction, the monster shoots a sharp tentacle and violently strikes the man's face. Gochian roars in pain and outrage, questioning how the creature dares to pretend to be the temple's children. Even though he is badly hurt, he uses all his willpower and grabs the enemy's blade to try to defend himself. The cruel illusion continues and the child faces cry, recalling the promise the uncle made to teach them how to fight. The giant monster approaches a hesitant Gochian, using the children's faces to leave him vulnerable. The student's face is asked to be saved from that monster, and the warrior is paralyzed by sorrow. He is fully aware that those voices are fake, and that the only way out is to crush everything in front of him. But the overwhelming emotions cloud his judgment and expose the weakness of any being that has a heart. The Isanjiama perfectly understands this human vulnerability and opens its real jaws behind the illusion. Using the prey's feelings, the monster weakens him mentally until the warrior loses the will to fight. The narration points out that no prey has ever managed to resist this trick, while Gochian trembles, paralyzed by fear. Surprising everyone, Aiz leaps in front of the man and delivers a strong blow with his weapon straight to the creature's head. The attack severely injures the Ishanjiangma, while the text highlights that among so many prey, an irregular existence has appeared. With a dark look and holding his weapon tightly, the youth tells the warrior to pull himself together, reminding him that it is a demon.